Welcome. I'm Pamela Rickia from livingjoyfully.ca, and today I'm here with Kinsey Norris. Hi, Kinsey.
Hi. I'm glad to be here.
Oh, I'm so happy that you're here too. Just as a little introduction, I have really enjoyed being connected with Kinsey online. It's been a while now, and I really enjoy the stuff that you're posting and your photos and stuff like that. So I was really excited when you said yes, and we get to dig deeper into your family's unschooling experience. So to get us started, Kinsey, can you share with us a bit about you and your family and what each of you are into right now?
Sure. So I am a really extroverted person, which means I process things really outwardly. So I hope I don't ramble too much. But I love everything unschooling. I have really loved learning about unschooling and really diving deeply into how to unschool better and gaining a better understanding about it over the last few years. That's been a very constant interest for me. Let's see. Right now, I'm kind of a scanner type personality. I will dig deeply into something and then move on to the next thing. I have a lot of unfinished projects and stuff like that. But sometimes I'll circle back around and come back to the same interest. Right now, I am really enjoying multi-generational stories, like fiction and nonfiction. So it's funny because I never really considered myself a history person. I hated history, I thought, but it's kind of fun. I've learned through these stories that I really enjoy learning about history and geography and things like that, but in the context of these like sweeping stories. So that's been really cool for me to learn that about myself. I am a former early childhood education person, teacher. I come from a family of educators, both my parents and my brother, as does my husband, Nick. Mm-hmm. His mom was a teacher and librarian, and his dad has farmed his whole life. So Nick, we met in college here in Lubbock, Texas. That's where we live. We went to Texas Tech University, and that's where we met. And we've been married almost 10 years this June. He still makes me blush. I'm over here like.
Aw, that's beautiful.
So he farms now, mostly cotton, some grains. We don't live on the farm. We don't have any farm animals or anything like that, although we kind of throw that idea around every so often. But his family has farmed forever, and I have a lot of family members who farm too. We both grew up in really small farming communities around here where we live. Mm-hmm. So we had all of that kind of in common. And so that's what he's doing now. Aside from running our farm operation, he's super, super passionate about football. And all Texas Tech athletics, actually. Yes. So every season, so it's all year round here. The sport. So he actually used to coach. He coached at the college level for a while at the beginning of our marriage, and right up until about the time that Riley, our first daughter, was born. After she was born, we kind of decided that staying closer to home and our families, the farming lifestyle might be a little bit more conducive to our needs as a family. Rather than coaching, which could, probably would have taken us all around the country. So we're happy to be home close to our family. Let's see. Other than that, he's a really avid Call of Duty player. He's been playing that for about 10 years, and he likes to hop on with some of our friends and play that. And we've been watching some playthroughs and stuff together here lately. So that's been really fun to do that together. Let's see, he reads all the time about all kinds of random things. I always tell him he would have been the perfect unschooler because he's a really curious person and loves to learn, but he did not like school at all. And I think he sort of skated by on the bare minimum throughout his whole school career, and with his charm, I think. So he's very much like a rabbit trail kind of guy. He's a lot of fun, really just warm and funny. Let's see. And then there's Riley. So we have two girls. Riley's 8 and Emmy Quay is 5. Riley, I would say, she's kind of been our guiding light for our family when it comes to like decisions that we've made for our family and stuff. Like I said, after she was born, we decided to stay close to home and kind of change up our whole lifestyle, really, to take care of her. So in the beginning, she had some medical things going on, and we weren't really sure what was happening. Lots of extensive and exhausting medical testing and things like that. Seeing specialists, having very unclear and inconclusive results and stuff. And it was all really traumatic for a while, the first 6 months of her life, I would say. So finally we kind of were just like, okay, enough of this. Like we're done with all of this. And we just sort of embraced her for who she was and how she was unfolding. She had some really profound sensitivities. And as far as her like global development, it was all just really unfolding really quite differently than most other children. And we just sort of embraced that and learned to adapt to that and her needs and just really accommodate for her. And we're still really committed to doing that now, even. So she is super kind and compassionate. She can't stand for anyone to be like hurt or sad. She's goofy sometimes. She really comes alive and shines late at night. And so that's a lot of fun. She is really passionate about everything Super Mario. So that started, I think, with like the classic Nintendo, and then it kind of moved on to the Nintendo Wii, and we got a Wii U and played that for a while, and then she ventured on to Nintendo Switch games. She loves watching all kinds of playthroughs on YouTube. That's her thing. And she really intently studies those and learns all about the games and the characters and everything like that. So that's been really fun. So we for a few months saved up some money and we were able to get a Nintendo Switch. And that has been so much fun. That's probably the thing that we do most together as a family. Right now we're playing through Luigi's Mansion 3 together.
I remember playing through that with Michael.
It has been so much fun. It really is like a whole family affair. Yeah. You know, and even if like we're playing, Riley might go back to her room to do something, and Nick and I are still like working on it. And then we get to a part where we don't know what to do. We're like, Riley, come help us. What do we do here? You know, and she'll come in and go, oh, you have to do this and that. And, you know, and helps us how to navigate or tells us where to go, whatever, because she has really like studied these games through YouTube. And so that's been just, I don't know, really fun to do together. She's really into role playing. She likes several different families' YouTube channels, things that have like role playing type, you know, scenarios and stuff like that. She really likes to use character figurines to sort of pretend play and role playing like that, and creating dialogue and stuff. She likes for us to be there with her, next to her while she's playing, but she doesn't necessarily want you to enter into play with her because she's got it in her mind how she wants things to go, I think. So, She does. She likes to wrestle and roughhouse, which is really fun. And that's something that she and Amy Quay and I, and Dad too when he's home, but we all do together, which is nice because typically Riley's really more of like a homebody kind of person, and typically she likes things to be kind of quiet and still and predictable and stuff, which is quite the opposite of what Amy Quay brings to the equation usually. So this roughhouse kind of play has been really good in connecting for us. It's a lot of fun. Let's see here. So Amy Quay is, we call her Amy. Her name's Emily. We call her Amy Quay. So if I might refer to her differently. Oh, well, actually, she's changed her name to Unicorn right now.
Okay.
So there's that. So sometimes Unicorn. But she is just like this force of spectacular energy. She's like naked and rugged and rough and stuff, 1 minute, and then the next minute she's like perfectly made up with full on makeup and dressed in a fancy dress and nails painted and all that kind of stuff. So you never know what you're going to get with her. She's also really kind and compassionate. She loves to take care of, the smallest of creatures around here. Geckos, we find geckos around, and she loves to carry them around and help them back outside and things like that. She's just really, she's persistent about the things that she wants to accomplish. She's very in tune with herself and what feels good to her. She's very playful and talkative. She's interesting. She's interesting to watch and to talk to. She has interesting things to say and to talk about. She loves like lighthearted jokes and pranks and stuff. That's one thing one of her interests. She likes to watch prank videos on YouTube. So she's always telling knock jokes or things like that. We play Roblox together. She likes playing Roblox and watching Roblox playthroughs. Let's see. Oh, she's constantly mixing up concoctions all over the place. She's very much like a cause and effect type person. She's always like mixing stuff and freezing stuff and melting stuff, dissolving stuff. Anything tactile she loves, like slime and kinetic sand or oobleck, like immersing her whole body into a box of flour, like things like that. She's into everything. The kids, they both love, we have several pets. We have a dog, River. We have 4 rats and lots of fish, and we all love our pets, and they love to help take care of them and stuff. We also like to spend a lot of time with family. So with us still being here where we kind of grew up, we have both of our parents are still here. Our grandmothers are here, and we've got some cousins and stuff. They're really close. So we have a really tight-knit, supportive community village around us. And so, we're really grateful for that. And so the kids have really close relationships with all of them, and we spend a lot of time with family. Wow. So, yeah, that was a lot. But yeah, that's
but see, okay, so that was beautiful. Okay. And as I was listening, there was something that I wanted to bring out for people, because you spoke so beautifully about all of them. Like, you shared how they shine, how they enjoy being in the world. And I just want people to make sure that they notice, number one, like, and you mentioned it, how different they are. How different their personalities are, right? Yes. And, you talked about those first 6 months with Riley and how challenging and traumatic that was, trying to figure out what was going on. And then that shift to just embracing her as she was and working with her, meeting her where she was and just working with that, and not, comparing against more conventional timelines of childhood development and all that kind of stuff, right? Like, because I think sometimes when people hear all these the lovely descriptions of people's lifestyle and their children, it can be easy to take that just on the surface level. That's not really what I mean. What I'm saying, like, to think, well, they have such easy kids, or, that's because, but it really is our work to do, isn't it? To do that transition, to see how they shine, to accept how they shine, to get to a point where we realize that that's more important to us, because these are individual choices to make, right? That we are choosing to value that over matching conventional milestones, or over matching conventional interests, or, things, what we should and shouldn't do playing together, just stuff like that. Like, because when we talk about them and when you're speaking of them, it's so beautiful, and we can see them, we can feel their joy coming out in this way and that way. And, just physically diving into all these concoctions and, slime, and, you can see the mess, when you take a moment to think about it. So that's all. I'm just encouraging people to realize, like, how much of that is deschooling work that you've done, right? To get to that point where this is what you value, where you see them clearly through their own joys, not through filters of things that we often bring to first having children. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. And I think some of that was a little bit easier for me to move through because I was in early childhood education, and I was with infants and toddlers. Well, so as far as like, all this tactile sort of play and mess and things like that, like that stuff was like nothing for me, because I'm like, that's good stuff, as far as, just letting kids get in there and allowing them to get in there and really explore things and stuff like that. Now, going back to sort of, Riley, and kind of embracing her for who she was, and measuring, against timelines and other children and all that kind of stuff. We did go in and out of that kind of thing because, we were, which, I'll talk about that. When I was teaching and stuff, and the girls went to school with me. So we were surrounded, we were in that still very much like education type environment. It was a little different just because it's different. It was different than like your public school setting or something like that. They really, we really embraced natural learning and stuff like that. But there was still like, milestones and stuff. So she was in and out of therapy for a while, like in, toddlerhood, and a little bit later, maybe around 3 or something. But again, we got into, it's like we found ourselves in all of this, and we weren't really seeing, what we experienced was that the stress and the anxiety of doing all that stuff was outweighing any kind of benefits that we were seeing. Mm-hmm. And so again, kind of like in her infancy, when we were like, we're done, just forget it. Like we're just gonna let her be her. We kind of did that again, as she got a little bit older, when we found ourselves, kind of in this really kind of just boxing kind of situation where she needed to be checking these boxes, and she needed to fit in a box like this, and this is what she should be doing, and all this kind of thing. So we, and it's been a journey like that with her, I think.
Yeah, no, I love that description. And that's the thing too. It's not at all about, I think what we lose is the have tos, right? You have to do therapy. You have to, like, it's not like it's bad. As in,
Oh, yeah.
maybe it's very useful. But the point is that you guys got to a point where you waited and you said, you know what, the negative implications of or environment is outweighing the benefits. So for us, this is the time when we're going to say no more right now. Thanks, right?
And I think we noticed too, where she was kind of, like even before she was verbal, even taking on this, I don't know, these messages maybe, or this like anxiety about there's something wrong with you that we're needing to fix.
Yeah.
And that is not at all what we want her to feel with herself.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that's beautiful because, sometimes people can feel like we're not, to me, it's all about exploring the world and exploring our options and possibilities. But like you said, it's for them. It's not about fixing them. Mm-hmm. Like from the outside, it's about helping them from the inside, helping them where it can help them, versus where it's something we're more imposing on them. Right. I think you can sense what the difference is there. And sometimes you need to try things before you can tell.
Oh, right? Sure. Yeah. Sure.
But yeah, no. That's awesome. Thank you very much for sharing that piece, because I think that just helps people see or realize that there's a different way to look at things. Like so often we get caught up in the expert, paradigm, yes. Right? Where other people know more and they need to tell us how to do these things. But I think part of deschooling is also regaining our sense of agency in our lives, right? That what we see is really valid. And these are our choices to make. We don't have to just always do things because we're told to do them. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I'm curious then, through that, how you discovered unschooling and what your family's choice and move to unschooling looked like.
Okay. Let's see, where to begin? So I think I was thinking about this, and I think sort of the seeds for unschooling, I think, were kind of planted like long before Nick and I were even together. We got married. Like I was thinking about like when I was an undergrad. So I think lots of things were happening kind of in conjunction with one another in order to like provide the environment for those little unschooling seeds to grow. That makes sense. So when I started going to school, I had already changed majors and schools. I think this was going to be my third major and my third school in like a year and a half or something like that.
Yeah.
So all of my basics were done. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I just didn't. But like all my basics were done. So time to choose. You got to choose. So I was comfortable with education, the idea of like education and being a teacher, stuff like that, because that's what I was familiar with,
Mm-hmm.
family. So that's what I chose. And I chose early childhood education because I just kind of thought, I think I would, enjoy being with young kids, as opposed to middle school or high school age kids. So that's where I went. It wasn't necessarily something I really wanted to do. But what surprised me was that I somehow as I, got introduced, I don't know, when I really got into it, this passion for respecting children and connection for learning and treating them like whole people. Mm-hmm. Like this passion for this stuff grew inside of me. Like I didn't expect it.
Yeah.
I didn't expect that at all. So I really got into it. And then, so a couple things were happening around the same time. So while I was in school, I was working at part-time at a minimum standards daycare here in town. And then I also started my lab experience in my coursework at the lab school at Tech. And so I was able to see and observe, be a part of firsthand, the differences in how children were affected when you have a very, on one hand, supportive environment where children their feelings were acknowledged, validated, they were supported, they had guidance during problem-solving situations rather than like this punishment reward type situation, so, and, on the other hand, I was in the other classroom, it was very much like survival mode, behavior management, assembly line type environment. Okay, so I was noticing, I was witnessing and I was part of it every day, like, oh my God, like it was so jarring. And it was life-changing for me to be a part of that and to just see the different effects that I was seeing with these children. And they were in about the same age group. So I got really fascinated and really passionate about the more respectful, kind of environment and viewing behavior as communication, this idea that, behavior has meaning, they're not, showing these negative behaviors or whatever to be bad or whatever. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to learn more. I wanted to be immersed in that more. And so I started working part-time at the Child Development Research Center at Tech, there where I was having my labs. I started working there. And then, and then at the same time, I also started nannying for a couple of professors and their 3-month-old infant. And so I was seeing, so all the things that I was learning, like in my prenatal and infant and child development classes, I was making connections with what I was experiencing in the classroom at the center, and then also now with this new infant that I was taking care of. So all of these things were connecting for me. And then when I was there at her house, so she slept a lot, right? She was 3 months old. And that was before smartphones. We didn't have Facebook or anything like that. So I would peruse through her parents' library, their collection of books. And I picked up one day, Natural Childbirth, the Bradley Way, mm-hmm. I think. I don't know if you've heard of that. Anyway, so I read through that, and I was hooked on this birth and natural childhood or pregnancy and natural birth and labor and stuff like that, and all of the biological processes and all this stuff. And things from that book were connecting with stuff that I was learning in my classes and with this infant and in the classroom. Like it was all just interweaving. It was wild. I know. But that's why, see, Pam, that's why I was looking back like, oh God, where do I even start? So then I start researching all of this. So, okay. And then that was the first time I'd ever heard of home birth. Mm-hmm. And so as I started researching that and everything, I decided, this was way before Nick and I were married or before we would even think about having kids, but I was having home births, from that time on, I was having home births. And then I just kept on researching, birth process and natural labor and birth practices and things like that. Neurobiological relationships between moms and babies and stuff. All this stuff was connected. So fast forward, we got married and then I became pregnant pretty soon after. And of course my research continued and I came across like natural weaning and bed sharing and attachment parenting and stuff like that. And we did have home births and we did very much so adopt like the attachment parenting type, style of parenting. So I think those were some of the little seeds that were kind of planted because unschooling to me really feels like kind of a continuation of attachment. Although I did mention, all right, so I stayed home with Riley for like the first 14 months of her life. And then when I went back to work, I went back to work at the CDRC where I had all of these experiences in school. I went back as a teacher in an infant and toddler classroom. So that was most of my early childhood education in the profession experience. And it was, so the culture there, like I said, is very supportive of children. There's not any kind of, reward punishment system. Everything is very like, conversational. We have conversations about everything. There's no timeout. There's no anything like that. Really helped to educate parents on or about respectful parenting and stuff like that. So that's kind of just how we were living. So the girls, when I started back to work, Riley was in my classroom. So that was really cool. And she moved on in the center, up through the classrooms. And then Amy Quay also was in my classroom too. So that was a really unique experience for them to be able to be at work with me and in my classroom. So that's kind of what we did until it was about time for Riley to age out of the center. It's a 0 to 5 classroom or 6, it's before kindergarten. So when I started to look into kind of what our choices were going to be for her and how she was going to be kind of what was going to be the best thing for her, the most supportive thing for her. We started kind of having concerns about her moving on to a school environment that was going to be very different from what she was accustomed to. So I arranged a meeting with the school, just some personnel from the school district here, just to sort of explore with them, how they could serve her and how they could support her. And I was just really disheartened after that meeting. As a mom of a child who was likely going to need extra support, and as an early childhood educator, like coming from that point of view too, and just, kind of hearing where the focus has gone in early childhood education. So after that meeting, we just kind of knew that public school, we could just kind of scratch off of the list. It just wasn't going to be a fit for her or for us. So, and then homeschooling was kind of an option in the hat, but we were trying to explore kind of our school options first. There was a couple of private schools that we kind of thought about too, but everything seemed to be really like worksheet driven and stuff like that. And that just really did not resonate with me, coming from, just with my background and stuff. And then also, I of course didn't like all of the punishment and reward systems that are pretty much in place everywhere, it seems like. So then, I just started researching homeschooling more and more and just kind of playing with that idea, what that might be like. So I read a book or two, and I made this like rough kind of like a schedule or flow of our day, kind of like how our days might go. This made up this rough schedule sort of. And I even kind of threw around the idea of converting Nick's man cave into our schoolroom. And so I just was thinking, I can just take what we're doing at the center, because I was already really experienced in creating plans and things like that based on children's individual interests and stuff like that. I thought, I'm just going to do at home. I can just do at home what I'm doing here at school. Mm-hmm. And I felt really comfortable about that. And I thought, well, I know how to do reading instruction. I know how to do math instruction. And I'm pretty sure I can figure out later how to teach those other subjects. So that's what we'll do. And then, I don't know, one day I somehow found Amy Child's podcast. And I heard Sandra Dodd talking about unschooling.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, this is it. Like, this is it. It made so much sense. And like the relief, because I was kind of having some anxieties about like how I was going to keep these schedules afloat, and like, are they really going to want to go out and do schoolwork in the schoolroom and stuff like, oh, I don't know. And so when I heard her describing talking about unschooling, I was like, oh my gosh, this makes so much sense. Like, duh, like I had watched
all those other things from earlier, right? Right. Yeah.
And I've watched like infants and toddlers completely just natural learning in front of my eyes for how many years now? Like, yeah, of course. But that, I don't know. It was just such a foreign thing, because surely you have to teach, natural learning is cool up until a certain age, but then like you have to teach them how to read, and you have to teach them how to do math and stuff, right? But I don't know, when I heard her talking about this, and then I went through all of these episodes about each of the subjects, which is really helpful to me to hear, like, okay, well, how does unschooling cover basically all of these subjects? Like, what does that look like? And that was really helpful to me. And I was like, all right, sold. Like, I'm sold. And I was really excited about it. And so I don't know, that was like this, I don't know, during the springtime or something. So I took that summer, and we lived like unschoolers. Of course, I don't know how much different. It was summertime. I don't know how much different we would have lived any other summer, really.
Yeah.
But I just kept learning and stuff, and it was just really exciting. So we continued on like that. The next year, I think we went one more year at the center all together, and then we were kind of trying to figure out how we're going to make this all work financially. So we had decided after that year that I would stay home, but we were still kind of considering, maybe, I think probably for like the having the kids be around other children kind of aspect of things. Well, maybe, we'll put Riley in this, we'll have her go to this little small half-day church kindergarten, this next year, and then homeschool full time, kind of like easing into homeschooling. Like Emmy Quay could have gone to the center still part time, so we thought we'll just ease into this homeschooling, unschooling thing. But then, after another summer, a wonderful summer of us spending it together, and the closer it got to school starting again, I was like, nope, like we're doing it. We're going to do it. We're starting this unschooling journey. I think I just knew in my being that is where we would end up anyway. Mm-hmm. And so I was just kind of like, this is it. Like, I don't want to waste any more time. We're doing it.
Yeah.
And that was it.
Yeah.
And that was a really long story.
I remember that moment too, because when I had discovered it, and, we talked about it, and we had that same, I'd talked about it before with Rock and I and me leaving work, all that kind of stuff. But once it had kind of solidified as an option, we weren't going to wait any longer. Like, the kids were home for March break, and we had just so much fun that week.
Yes.
Like, why should they go back for a few months? Start later, it's like, no, we'll just start now, because once we had a taste of it, we didn't want to go back. Yeah. No,
right.
That makes so much sense. And I love the way that, like, thanks for starting that story that early, just because all those seeds, right, that you were talking about, you could see the various little pieces that you were putting together, and that when you found Unschooling, it connected on so many levels, right, to everything that you had been picking up over the years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I did teach 1 year. So Nick and I, when we were engaged, a couple years after I graduated, I taught 1 year in public school somewhere else. And, after that 1 year of my experience there, it was enough for me. And so when we were looking at all these options and stuff, I just thought, why would I want to send my child to somewhere that I don't even want to be? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
that's a great point.
That was kind of another piece. Like I had already kind of felt that as an adult, and I don't know, just thinking about her individually, I thought, I just think this is going to be a really overwhelming situation.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. So, as we're talking about all this, you did a lot of the educational piece of deschooling just through your work, right? Through your interest in early childhood education and stuff. So that piece seems like it kind of flowed well for you. Well, and then all the different topics, right? And I'll share a link to Amy's podcast, Unschooled Life or Unschooling Life, an Unschooling Life, I think it's called.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'll share to that so that people can take a peek at that. So I'm curious what you found to be the most challenging aspect of deschooling, as you found unschooling and you were moving that way, embracing that more and more. You didn't need the schoolroom. I assume Nick still has a man cave.
He was so happy to find he was not going to have to lose his man cave after all.
So I'm just really curious to hear about your experience working through.
That's so funny too. It was such a huge relief to me too, because like I said, I'm like a really kind of scanner type person. Like I'm like the epitome of unfinished projects.
Yeah.
And so I thought, oh my gosh, a schoolroom, like I'll never finish that. There's no way. So we don't have to do a schoolroom. Okay, great. That was a really easy one to let go, thankfully. So I did, you're right. Like, I think a lot of the natural learning things like that were pretty easy for me to move through because of my background. There's been a couple times in the past where I panicked briefly about, reading or something like that, but when I was first starting to kind of purchase foods and bring foods into the house that I hadn't ever brought into the house before, I had a little bit of, a couple panicky moments about things like that. But, I was able to pretty easily kind of peel back the layers there and sort of move through those things. So I would say, this makes me feel really vulnerable, by the way. Okay. This piece. But that's okay. No, it's honestly the challenge. So my challenges really, I don't feel like had to do much with the kids at all. Like, my challenges were more really personal and internal, like about myself. So like really embracing becoming the learner again after having been an educator about learning.
Oh, yeah.
And being someone that others came to a lot of times for answers about children and learning and connection and things like that. For a good part of a decade. Mm-hmm. So kind of embracing that role of being a beginner again and releasing that role of being an educator. I still very much wanted to like advocate what was right for children and learning, even though I really was starting over with my own learning. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Oh, so a lot of sense, yeah.
So, and like at the beginning of our journey, I was following several Instagram and Facebook accounts and blogs and stuff that depicted unschooling in this very like perfect and pretty way, or like this really trendy kind of wild and free and stuff like that. And so in part, like visually, that was kind of shaping for me what I thought good unschooling was supposed to look like. Mm-hmm. You know, and so that's what I was sort of trying to create for us. So basically, in my efforts to not have my kids shoved into boxes, I was almost creating my own box for our unschooling life.
Wow. Does that make sense? That's such a great insight, Kinsey. Because it's so true. I mean, really, really, because when you're first learning, you're like, what does unschooling look like? What do days look like, right? And you're really searching. Mm-hmm. I mean, everybody is. I remember those times too. And it is so easy, not so easy, but, you know, to see how it looks in other people's families and to feel mm-hmm. like that's what we should be shooting for, right? Yeah. And I do think that is part of the journey. So many people hit that spot. And mm-hmm. and it is that moment, that realization eventually, as you keep learning about it. Like you said, this is something that you've been interested in and you're continuing to learn about. But that mm-hmm. kind of aha moment when it's not about the what that they're doing, it's about the why. Mm-hmm. The what they're doing is what fits for their family, right? Mm-hmm. And that the why behind it, it can look very different in our own families, right? Like you said, that box, that vision that we have in our head because we see how it looks in other people's families, and we're like, okay, that's kind of what I'm shooting for. We all want we want to know where we're trying to get to, right? And mm-hmm. then we try to make it look like that for our family, and eventually so often it doesn't really work, right? Because we're not the same people as that other family. And the realization that it's so scary as well to realize that that's an open question. What does it look like in our family? Right? And that we can't really look outside to see that we are instead creating it for ourselves. I mean, yeah. That is scary. That beginner's mindset too that you talked about, I loved that as well. It's it's a total role shift for us to that learning piece. But then, in that learning piece, we see other things and we're like, oh, that's what we're shooting for. And then we get to the point, like that's what I love about seeing unschooling as a journey, because it's all these little steps, all these little realizations and insights along the way, and aha moments that we have as we peel away those layers, like you were talking about before, peeling away those layers and realizing, because then, like you said, those periodic kind of panic moments or anxiety moments where it's like, I'm really trying to do this, but it's not working for us. It's not working for us. And then it's like, is it the unschooling? Is it us? Is it something we're doing wrong? And then when you're peeling away those layers, you come to realize, no, it's not about us doing things wrong. It's about those not being the things that fit well for us. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, and the great thing is, and the interesting thing is, talking to so many different people about unschooling and what it looks like in their lives, I hope people take away how it looks very different. Yet you can hear the joy in all the guests' voices as they talk about their family and everything, right? Because that's the root of unschooling. That is the inner gooiness that's so lovely, but it looks so different for each family. But it takes a while to get there, doesn't it?
Yes, it really does. And it has for me. And I think it's continuous, really.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
because we're all growing and changing, right? Along the way.
Yeah.
Like we as parents are, our kids are, and what work that's the thing. The other thing is that as you kind of figure out and get to a spot where, everybody's kind of connected and related and we kind of understand each other, we've got a good flow going, it's not going to stay that way. Right?
When I was kind of doing that, when I was sort of in that, I don't know, I still really wanted to share my passion and really advocate what was, helpful for children and learning and connection and stuff like that. But, when I was sort of doing that and this kind of, I don't know, it felt like this platform kind of way, I was actually missing out on a deeper connection with my own actual children, and on how to unschooling better, but as time went on, I began to just dig deeper and be more introspective, I think, and make intentional choices about what things were moving us closer to real, rich unschooling in our family.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Our family. What was reflecting on what was serving my relationships with my kids, and kind of this getting more into this soaking into my bones kind of learning about unschooling instead of this surface level kind of regurgitative head knowledge kind of that I was,
For me, that is something that I find fascinating, is that the intellectual understanding of unschooling, that level, and that's a great place to get to, but you can't stop there. If you stop there, then it's more like unschooling rules, and I should be doing this, and I got to do this, and I got to say yes all the time, and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You understand it intellectually, why it makes sense, why natural learning works, and all that kind of stuff. But there's that layer deeper where you, I think I use a phrase you feel it in your bones, in your soul, because that's when you've gotten to the point where you have that level of self-awareness, that you've peeled back all that stuff, and where you've come to value, like you were saying, everybody as individual whole people. And you've really spent that time connecting without that kind of judgmenty level. I don't know, without that without those rules kind of frameworked on top of it. How does it really work for us? What does my child really enjoy doing? How do I really connect with them? Right? Instead of sometimes maybe it's easier to think of instead of a role, because at first when we intellectually understand it, we're trying to step into the role of unschooling parent. Yeah, maybe that could be one way to think of it. But the difference of actually just living it, you get to the point where you feel it in your bones so much more than just an intellectual understanding. We're digging deep here, Kinsey.
My wheels are spinning right now. And for me, because I mentioned earlier that I'm very much like an outward kind of processor. That's my personality, and so I'm always trying feeling out from other people. What do you think? What do you think? So there's almost this almost, I don't know, a approval seeking, or still needing to be validated or relevant or some way or something. And really what it took was me digging deeper and being with myself, which can be really difficult for me as like an extroverted person. But really digging deep into in doing this like tough inner work in order to kind of deeply sink into what true and like good unschooling really feels like. You know, that flow.
Yeah.
And then, you know, and really it's when you're in that kind of that flow, it's just so all like encompassing that I don't know, it doesn't even really occur to me, like we're in that, it doesn't really occur to me to really even consider what other people are thinking.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
What came to mind when you were saying that is a way I enjoy talking about deschooling, because so often, like when you're in that intellectual understanding level, you're like, okay, I'm deschooling. I need to go down this path and I want to get it done. Right?
Yeah.
Like, when am I done deschooling? When am I done?
Am I there yet? Are we there yet?
Yes. And then at the end, though, once you've actually peeled away and done the work, it's not even a question you ask yourself anymore.
Yeah,
because you're not judging that anymore. You've gotten to that point where you're just living and connecting and being with your family and being in that flow, and just living life together. And that's where the value is. And you lose that intellectual look at like feedback, validation. Am I done? Am I done? Right?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Like now it just kind of feels like we're just sort of getting on with things and we're just living our lives together.
Yeah, no.
And I do, like, you know, you're talking about my posts and things like that. I do still love to share like what we're up to and what we're enjoying and things like that. But I have like a really different feeling about it now. Like there's kind of been this shift. It's coming from a different place.
Yeah.
Like, and sometimes I'll even share what feels like more like journal entries almost. But I really enjoy doing that. And I enjoy that's kind of how I enjoy putting like love and joy out into the world, you know, and maybe someone will see something and think, oh, well, whatever they're doing is really cool. Or, you know, oh, they have so much fun together. And, you know, maybe it will help someone to have more fun with their kids or find more joy.
No, I think that like you were talking about earlier, those little seeds, right? It's just planting those little seeds. And, you know, just because it's interesting to share, it's fun to share. And also I think too, part of it, it's also, you know, nice, almost like journaling for ourselves, right? That we've also got that history. Because I also think it's also valuable to document those good times too. Like I talk about that during deschooling. Remember the times when things are flowing, when things are going well, because that kind of becomes, you know, your light at the end of the tunnel. Because when things aren't going well for a while, it's like, you realize it's part of the journey. It's like, oh my gosh, this is the end of the world. You know, we need to just stop doing this. No, that's how you start to recognize the flow, the ups and downs of life. When things go sideways, that things will come back. You know, it's all, it's valuable stuff to remember and have in your back pocket or on your page or on your Instagram when things are going a bit sideways, because it reminds you, you know, there are good times. We can get there, right?
That's so funny that you bring that up, just because, like, you know, the past few weeks here, you know, like last week we were all sick and it wasn't much fun around here. Yeah. And, like there's kind of, I've gone through some emotional times, when my grandfather just passed away, and, there's been some of that ebbing and flowing going here, and I had some of those thoughts even before, as we got closer to, chatting, like, but our lives, I don't feel very much joy right now, right? But it really is. But when you look, you're able to look back, you do see like, well, things in life do happen, but you're able to move through those things. And I don't know. I don't remember what I was saying about that.
But it was a great example that it's true.
But yeah, being able to look back at those times as kind of using them as a journal, and just a reminder that sometimes when things don't feel all that great, like you don't stay there.
Yeah. Yeah. No. Well, and something I've really enjoyed seeing a few times is your approach to these more challenging moments, right? Mm-hmm. And I remember as I was moving deeper into unschooling, it was a huge paradigm shift for me how to approach these moments when things, maybe the kids wanted to do different things. Like you said, your kids have very different personalities. Or maybe I was uncomfortable with something one of my kids wanted to do. And it was such a paradox for me at first, the unschooling approach, as I would be reading and learning about, was to be open, that kind of open approach, open-minded, being creative, and just opening up to whatever possibilities, right? That felt so uncomfortable for me because I had lived in a world where, okay, there's a problem. I'm going to narrow in on the best solution to solve it. And it was all like boom, 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 narrowing things down to find the right answer versus opening things up to all these possibilities. To me, that was so scary. And it felt like just like the opposite of what I thought needed to be done in those situations. Yet through our experiences, right, we do come to see that it's in those challenging moments when our creativity and our kids' creativity really shines, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. It does. And it's, sometimes when you're in all of that, it feels not only scary kind of to have all this open-endedness about it, but it also feels like a lot sometimes. Just I jokingly, will tell Nick, I refer to it as like mental aerobics. Kind of trying to, throwing all these ideas around in your head. But yeah, and I do, having two children that move through the world very differently, experience the world very differently, have very different needs. I do have a lot of opportunity for, to get creative about things. But like you said, I mean, so do they, So, I think what's helped me in these kind of more challenging times is remembering, well, like you said, that there are always several, if not endless possibilities for, any given situation, and just trying to keep that openness to really be objective about things, kind of assessing what the true needs are, being able to kind of back up, slow down, assessing the needs of everybody.
Slowing down is important, right? Because we feel like we need to rush because we want to get through it. We want to solve it as fast as possible.
Yes.
But often it really doesn't need that speed, does it?
Right. And that's what's super cool about this whole thing too, is you've got the time for that.
Yeah.
You don't have to rush around and solve this problem right now.
Yeah.
You have the time for this dialogue, these conversations with your kids. So I was thinking something like around here lately, this has been kind of a thing. Like Emmy Quayle want to go outside and play, and Riley doesn't. But so going through all these kind of questions, like, okay, well, is Riley not wanting to go outside because she's just really into what she's doing right now? Is there something uncomfortable about outside? That is there a way we can help her to be comfortable outside? Or what is Emmy Quay wanting to do outside? Is there something specific? Can we move that thing, whatever it is, inside? Can we do something similar inside? Can we make a plan to go play outside when Dad gets home and maybe do something different altogether now? There's all of these things to go through, in your mind. And I sometimes, I'll bring the kids in to these conversations. I won't bombard them with these questions. Some of them are just things I'm going quickly through my mind. But like the other day, Emmy wanted to go out to use sidewalk chalk. She wanted me to go with her. Riley was watching something on the TV, and of course I asked Riley, like, hey, Emmy's wanting to go do sidewalk chalk outside. Do you want to come with us? No. And then she also wasn't comfortable with us going out without her. So I'm like, okay, and you just start thinking, okay, what can we do in order for everybody to be happy and everybody to have their needs met, and to be comfortable. So I said, oh, Emmy, what if we get a big box and cut the sides and lay it out flat in the floor and bring the sidewalk chalk in? And we can do sidewalk chalk on the box, in the floor, and watch TV with Riley, and she was, she loved that idea, so it's, I don't know. I feel like we're constantly coming up with stuff like that, but everybody was happy. That worked. We did it. Everybody was happy. Everybody's needs were met. And, it just worked. There's almost, always something. You can just keep going until everybody kind of feels comfortable with, what you land on, I guess.
Yeah, because I mean, if that wasn't comfortable for Emmy Quay, then she would have said no because something, right? And that would have just been another seed for another connection. Well, what if we did this, or what if we did that? It really helps. And sometimes I think people can be like, oh, you're just the focus on working through that to get to the point where everybody's comfortable and happy, but that is such a great skill to bring into the world. Like, this is not spoiling or, being taken advantage of. Like, that's work to do for ourselves if we're feeling that way, right? Because it's not about being martyrly when we're approaching conversations like that at all. Like, we're bringing ourselves to it. They're bringing their needs. And this is such a valuable way just to approach life in the world, right? So this is just such great stuff to be doing with them. Right now, it's these little things, but as they get older, it's different things. And as they get to be teens, it's different things again. And as young adults out in the world, these are just amazing skills and abilities. Not only the self-awareness piece, right? So that they're taking just that moment, even Riley saying, no, but I'm not comfortable with you guys going out. Like, her understanding that about herself and being able to share that. Awesome, right?
Yeah.
And to be able to come up with, how can we put this puzzle together that all these pieces fit? Like, I love that. And it is so creative and it's so helpful, like as a skill, as a way of relating to people, as a way of understanding ourselves. Like, it hits so many buttons, doesn't it?
Yeah, because, now, even at times where we're not even brainstorming about how we're going to go about something, Riley will come to me. She'll say, she'll come to me and start giving her ideas. Well, what if we do this and then you do that after, or whatever, Yeah. So I think because of all of these conversations that we're having constantly, she has learned, she's picked that up.
Yeah.
And is using those skills, how they're meaningful to her.
Yeah.
From moment to moment, day to day.
That's lovely. That's lovely.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned that where you are, you've got lots of family around you. And I was curious, with the holidays on the horizon, spending time with extended family members who may not, especially, so I don't know what your situation is, but, especially I know I had a number of family members who were in education, and teachers and that kind of stuff. So it can sometimes be challenging when they don't understand our lifestyle. And I was wondering if you just had any ideas or tips to share with people on things that help you guys move through those moments.
Sure. Well, as far as like the holidays coming up and stuff, so yeah, in our specific situation, we have a lot of family here, close family here, extended family, but they're very close to us. Yeah. And so the people we see at holidays are mostly the people we see on a weekly basis.
Ah, there you go. Cool.
But so it's a little different for us maybe than some people. But if I would say if you've got extended family members who maybe you aren't around very much or do have questions or something like that, I mean, let's be honest, you're not going to be able probably to have this in-depth, really effective conversation in the middle of a holiday gathering. So, I always try to prepare myself or do things to help prepare myself before going to something like that. And there's lots of resources about this, past online discussions. So another episode from Amy Child's podcast was actually a relatives episode, I think, but you were on that one. I don't know if you were reading a talk or one of your essays or something.
Yeah.
You remember that?
Yeah.
Anyway, it was a really helpful one, just of kind of practical things you can do if, in these kind of situations where people have questions or something like that. I think also, remembering that each conversation is a choice. You have a choice. That sounds like something Anna would say.
Yeah. It's always a choice.
She probably has. I probably stole that from Anna. But, every conversation is a choice. There are ways that you can kind of move forward with a conversation. If somebody has a question, if they're coming at things from a really genuine, point of curiosity, I think. Mm-hmm. And then there are ways to kind of pivot out of conversations too, if needed. If things feel a little bit more like they're coming from a, point of concern or needing to pass some judgment or something like that for whatever reason. And so if you can kind of, for me, I try to sort of get a feel for maybe where it's coming from, what the intention behind the questioning is coming from, I can kind of then figure out more easily kind of where to take things.
Yeah.
If you want to, get into things a little bit, or if you want to sort of just pivot out of that.
Yeah. No, that's a great point. Understanding, because meeting someone where they are is really where you can connect with them, right? If they're talking from one perspective and we just stay in our very experienced unschooling perspective, you're neither of you are going to really be able to make connections, which are where we learn, right? If we're so far apart, nothing's really going to make sense. We're just kind of talking at each other rather than with each other. So yeah, I find it helpful when the intention piece is very important too, right? because you choose to engage, but if it feels like it's judgmental or it's they're trying to lead you somewhere to make a point, to try and trap you or whatever, it all depends on that, pivoting out totally. Or I used to go and just say, oh, I'm going to check on the kids.
Yep.
Right. Yep. And that there was, or I have to go to the bathroom, or, I'm hungry, I'm going to go, there's just so many ways there to easily
the whole bean dip maneuver.
Yeah.
The bean dip maneuver. It's
exactly.
Yeah. I might just turn, ask, briefly answer a question or something like that, but then just immediately kind of ask the person something about what's going on in their life, or how was your last vacation, or whatever, or yes, I'm gonna choose, excuse me, I'm gonna go check in with the kids. And honestly, I love being with the kids, especially at like family gatherings and stuff like that. So I'll go hang out with the kids. We've taken games and stuff before, or thought ahead about some things maybe we can do together.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not finding yourself in some of those conversations you don't really want to be in. We take the switch almost everywhere now with us, and we share that, and we have a lot of fun.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that was another big piece for me. We would always, because I always wanted the kids to also enjoy this time, right? And so often when we were going places, they didn't have other younger kids, so they didn't have toys or things for them to do. So it was important for me that they enjoy the time as well. So yeah, we would bring consoles and set them up, and or bring games that we knew like everyone would enjoy playing together, stuff like that. I always kind of came with a whole arsenal of stuff, plus an idea in my head of, questions I could ask, or I might even say to the kids, remember last time grandma, was doing this, we can ask her about how that's going or whatever. There were a couple times too, if the kids were into something, like it was Harry Potter Clue or, Monopoly phase for a while. And I would phone ahead and say, hey, if we bring this, you want to play? Because the kids are really into it right now, and that would set up for them as well, so that they could be expecting it. It wasn't a big shock to them. And because, I found often they wanted to enjoy that time too. But yeah, the other piece too was, it was funny when I was saying, I'm going to go check on the kids. The back of my mind, even as I said that, was, you know what? Most of the time I was already with the kids.
Yes.
That was more fun than sitting around, the table after dinner for an hour, just chatting about, who's doing what. And, that kind of adult conversation. It was more fun to
politics and all kinds of things or whatever.
Exactly.
Well, yeah, and if I do find myself in a conversation, or like with people in our lives who we are a little, closer with, like my parents or fixed parents or grandparents, or, and they're asking like about what the kids are up to and things like that. Like I really try to keep our joy at the focus, like cool things that we've been up to, things that the kids are excited about lately, or things we've learned lately. And, and I hope that my excitement is evident too. And so that, is hopefully sending the message that, like we're happy and confident about how things are going right now, and, so just keeping your focus, I think, on the joy and the excitement is really helpful.
Yeah. I found that too with on my husband's side, who weren't as familiar or curious about unschooling. After a year or so of, me happily answering, like just sharing what we were doing, having fun and everything, they just kind of eventually just stopped asking, or at least stopped bothering sharing their concerns, because they knew I was going to have an answer and a positive, response to how we were approaching. And, then eventually after a few years, they were all very happy about it. But yeah, it just took, because that wasn't a place where I wanted to discuss any concerns or questions that I had, right? Because of course the answers were going to come from a conventional perspective. They were going to be, we'll put them back in school, and why would I set them up because they're wanting to help, right? So their answer is coming from the kindness of their heart, from their viewpoint. And I know I'm not going to be taking their advice because that's not the path I was wanting. So it would never be a helpful conversation. We were both going to walk away, maybe not upset, but not feeling heard. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Because that wasn't a conversation for us to have. So yeah, being able to share the fun stuff and the joy, because that's the piece that they're part of what they're worried about, right? At least seeing that we're having fun, that the kids are happy, that the kids are actively doing things and just enjoying their lives. That was the piece that I was really happy to share with them.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Okay, last question. I would love to hear your favorite thing right now about the flow of your unschooling days. Now that you're all healthy?
Yeah. Yes. Things are feeling better now. No, well, there's so many things, So I asked Amy Quay this question, like, what's your favorite thing about kind of just our life every day? And she said, hanging out.
Wow.
And I loved that. Like, she's so right. We can simply hang out. And, and I think a really cool byproduct of that to me is the discovery that happens. Like discovering new interests, discovering new bits of information about places and people or things or, whatever, discovering things about each other and about myself. Yeah. I don't know. I don't think I could have ever expected or imagined how much more like living like this would give us, aside from like, I don't know, the learning or, I don't know. It's just really exciting and fun. All of those discovery pieces are really exciting and fun to me. And I just love every minute. And I just, I'm really excited to keep on going to see what's going to happen next. I don't know. I'm just really filled with gratitude to be able to live this way with my family.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's beautiful, Kinsey. And I love that hanging out answer. It's just that space to be together.
Yes, to be, just being,
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much, Kinsey. I really appreciated our conversation. It was so fun to hear more about your journey. Learn more about you guys. That was so awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate you inviting me. Oh man, it's been so great to talk to you.
Oh yay, I'm glad it was.
I just love the podcast. I was telling my mom, I'm like, I don't know, there's like over 200 something podcast episodes, and I know I've listened to every single one at least once. I mean, it's been so valuable for us and really supportive. So I just really appreciate all the work that you have done and that you continue to really.
Thank you so much, Kinsey. That's awesome. And before we go, where can people connect with you online?
So I am on Facebook, Kinsey Riley Norris. If you want to connect with me there. I'm on Instagram, Kinsey Norris, I think is my username. Probably those are the best two places to connect with me. Yeah, and I'm up for chatting. I love talking about unschooling, so if anybody wants to chat, I'm totally game.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, and in the show notes, I will share links to your profiles there so people can connect. That's awesome. Thank you so much, Kinsey. Have a great day.
Thank you. Bye, Pam. You too.